Hi, my name is Niklesh and I'm one of the mechanical engineers of 5518. And today I'm going to teach you how to solder. So you might ask, what is soldering? Soldering is when you take two wires that are just, broken for some reason, and you want them to work properly again. So in this case, we have these two wires that we want to just plug in for one of our electrical pieces, but the wires are cut. Instead of just crimping on a new black and white piece because we don't want to sacrifice the length of the wire, we can just solder them back on so it's the same length again. Before we continue, safety first. So there's multiple pieces that you might need. All of them are relatively inexpensive, so if you don't have them, it's not hard to get. They're going to be in any hardware store. So let's start with the main important part, which is the soldering iron. This is the actual iron, and this is the mounting thing that it comes with. There's electrical tape for you to cover up the wires afterwards, so you don't get shocked. Then there's the wire strippers to strip the wire to the copper wires to take off all of the protective coating, like the black coating and the red coating. That's what that's for. And then there's the solder. So there's lead and lead-free. This is lead-free, so it's a little bit better. It's safer for the environment, safer for you to breathe. These are called helping hands. Basically, you put the two ends of the wires together and you kind of point them towards each other. Therefore, you don't have to have somebody holding it, or you can hold it. So be very stable. For more of a precautionary step, string tubing is also used. For example, if you have multiple wires, like a positive and a negative of the same wire, you can put string tubing on each of the one wires and then electrical tape both wires together. So step one, the soldering iron should be turned on. Set it to level 5 if you have a level, or just the highest one. And then step 2, I would take your helping hand and I would point the two wires together. So for example, they are stuck together with a little bit of glue between them, so I would peel them apart like this. As you can see, each of the wires that you might solder are going to be different lengths. Some wires are thinner, some wires are thicker. And if you get a good wire stripper, they will have different stages for you to use. So like, if you come closer, you can see different size holes, and that's for the different size wires to strip, okay? And when we're talking about stripping wires, the definition of that is that there's a protective coating around that so you don't get a shock. And if you look closely, there's some metal wires, copper wires, inside the coating, okay? So what you're trying to get is taking off the protective layer so you can expose the copper wires. When you're supposed to strip wires, you're supposed to be maybe like half an inch to an inch away from the end, and you just press really hard and then you pull. Twisting might help because you're just trying to take off the protective layer. So it should look something like this. Okay, about half an inch of the protective coating cut off, and the exposed wires. There should be about individual wires, and you're supposed to expose that. You're supposed to do it to all 4 ends, so there's one black, and then I need to do it for all the other ends. So I'll be back after I finish taking about half an inch of the protective coating from all of the ends. So we have all of them, all the wires stripped. So what I would suggest doing is that you just twist all the copper wires together so they don't fray apart, and it'd just be easier to work with. And I would also make them into sort of like a hook shape, sort of like this, like that, on all 4. So the reason why you want the hook shape is because the best way to actually solder it is when you can kind of clasp them together, and then you put the solder when they're actually clasped. It's very easy and it's very efficient. So I'm gonna start with the red wires first. You want to make sure you don't do red and black because that's positive and negative. It's gonna flip the wires. So make sure you do, if there are colors, make sure they're the same colors. So red and red and black and black. The way you do this is you kind of clasp this like this, right? Maybe a couple inches down from where you actually need to put the soldering, and then you kind of point them towards each other. Okay. It's really useful because you can just like move them around and then clasp them separately like this. Ta-da. Cool. That's what you need to do. Okay. Now you unravel your soldering, maybe about 7 inches, 8 inches, like that, just like a straight line. You don't need to cut it or anything like that. You can hold it like this, and then you can just point it towards, and then with the soldering iron you can just do it. Next step, I would say hold the soldering iron like a pencil in your dominant hand. It's the most comfortable you're going to be and the most stable you're going to be. And then the solder the flux with the other hand, okay? So what I would do is I would go really close, then I would just touch the end of this into that, and it would just melt into the wire. It should be very, very easy for it to melt. Okay, make sure you get all of the endings, all of the gaps. There should be no gaps, and make sure you don't have like too much flux on there, because then it's just going to be really bad. So depending on how many wires you need to do it, for example, I need to do a red one and a black one. It's going to take you different times. Take your time with it. It's not hard to do. You just need a very stable hand and just a little bit of patience. Make sure you cover all ends, not just the top. You can readjust the helping hands, so you can turn it upside down and then get all of the flux on the bottom side too. The undershell should look something similar to this. Maybe a little bit cleaner could help. I'm gonna now do it to the black side, and then I'll be back with you afterwards. So after you're done and happy with all the flux and all the the hooks and stuff like that, please turn off your soldering iron. It's very hot and somebody could get injured. So I soldered the black and black and the red on red. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put string tubing around the black wires only and then the red wires only. And then after that, we're gonna put electrical tape about both of them. So what I do is I take about 4 to 5 inches of electrical tape. The way you actually rip electrical tape is you can just pull it and it should rip. It's not really required to use scissors or anything like that. And then when you put it on, sort of angle it to the side, so then when you start wrapping it, it automatically wants to cover itself. Okay? And then make it really, really tight. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put them together and just tape it, just so it's less annoying to deal with. Ta-da!
This one is, I think.
So what I would do now is I would test if this wire works. If it doesn't work for some reason, what you can do is you can just strip it a little bit more and then cut off like this 1 inch gap, and then you can just do it a little bit shorter. It's gonna be the same result. It's the same steps, so follow all of them over again. Thanks for watching. This is Team 50F18 signing off.